All right, so we're rolling. We're not live, but we're rolling. Um, how are you, man? It's good to see you. It's been like a long time,
Yeah, it's been what, like 4 years since I've talked to you,
something like
give
that.
or
Yeah,
take. Yeah.
yeah.
How's
Um,
life been treating you?
crazy. Good. I have two kids now,
Nice.
so that's been like that's a project in and of
I
itself.
believe it.
But it's a lot of fun, and so I've really been enjoying like your weight, your strength training
Hmm.
journey. It's been really cool to see you because I think kind of uh, when we went to Del Tech together, like you were into the working out thing, but not to the degree that it is now. So, with that in mind, why don't you just like take a couple of minutes, tell everybody who you are, and kind of why we're talking today?
Yeah.
And yeah.
So my name's COSME Gonzalez. I'm a local competitive strongman slash powerlifter.
Mm.
I fiddle around with a few other things, but for the most part, I like train people in powerlifting, strongman. I help some EMTs, firefighters, and stuff like
Oh,
that
that's
pass their
awesome.
tests. Help out sometimes soldiers pass a lot of their exams, like their physical fitness tests and stuff like that.
Okay. I just already a couple of questions. So, is this your is this do you work for somebody or is this your business? What's
A
the
little bit of both.
breakdown?
So when you're an independent contractor, obviously, like you're obviously working for yourself, but
Right.
you're kind of indirectly promoting somebody else too in the
Sure.
process. So I work locally at the training center, but I do also coach online. So
Oh, that's
a little
awesome.
shameless plug there.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
Yeah, so to make it really simple, I get really good at getting people as strong as they want to be, basically. So I'm lucky enough to coach some of the best athletes in the Northeast. One of them being Kai Hepner. I don't know if you follow him on social media or not. Um,
I don't, but that's no shade to him. That's just I have no bandwidth. Like,
it's okay. So he competed in America's Strongest Teen recently. He actually won first
oh,
place.
that's awesome.
Yeah, he deadlifted like 820 pounds on a frame. Put 230 pounds over his head. And this is at 19 years old too.
Oh my
So
God,
crazy strong kid.
that is awesome.
Um, on top of that, he had the fastest time on the truck pull for his weight class at I think 16 seconds. He pulled two trucks 50 feet. So
Good Lord.
yeah, so he's a fast guy. He's very athletic. Uh,
How long
to
have you
put it
been
quite
working with
simply,
him?
honestly, like 8 months. Yeah,
And
so not very long.
um, God, there's so many things that I want to ask you about this. Uh, Again, I've been like I said, I've been following kind of like your strength training journey over the last several years.
Hmm.
And in the last, I would say, year or so,
Hmm.
for me, like I've figured out how to establish like some like a workout routine in my everyday life, right? And I think I want to dive into this point just for a little bit. So my wife and I got married in 2016. So we got married and something clicked and I was like, I need to go to the gym. Like I need to like I need to do everything possible to avoid stagnating in my life. And so where we worked, there was a gym basically right next door. It was a Planet Fitness, $10 a month. There
Hmm.
was literally no excuse for me not to go to the gym. So I went probably minimum 4 times a week. Uh,
Good.
and I was very consistent, very almost religious with it. You know, I had to go to the gym. I had to go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. No exceptions. Um, but I, I wasn't making like there was no progress being made. Like it felt
Hmm.
very it's hard to describe even
I
now.
know exactly what you're talking about.
But
You
I
don't even
could
have to go too into detail.
like I think part of it was honestly I was probably overtraining and not recovering enough. I think that was part of it.
That or the
Uh,
environment.
the
People in Planet Fitness don't train hard. Like, no shade
True,
on them, but like
true,
you've seen it. There's people on there that walk on the treadmill for 15 minutes and think they did something,
right,
and
right.
that's better than nothing. Obviously, you'll
Agreed,
get progress
agreed,
when you start,
agreed.
but once you pass that plateau, what are you doing?
Right,
Are you training harder than last time? Are you adding more
right,
sets, reps, or weight?
right, right.
So sometimes that intensity, you can't reflect on it when you're in those kind of spaces. Like, not saying you can't get in good shape at Planet Fitness, you can.
Yeah.
It's just harder to versus like say a gym where you see more people that are consistently in shape.
Hmm.
Like the gym I go to, there's people that bench 400 pounds like on the regular. Like I train with somebody that benches like 475.
Hmm.
So
So
like
I mean,
it
I,
takes you to a whole nother level.
right, right. I imagine that there's a more like motivational aspect to that if you're the culture itself helps with the motivation to keep pushing into right because there were a lot of people there when I would go, but it was just I was kind of alone. I was kind of like I'm doing
Yeah.
this thing, um but 6 months made very little progress, and it just kind of like fell by the wayside. Flash forward to about a year ago, and I've been listening to like health and nutrition podcasts, things like
Hmm.
that. And it just like struck me that I have all I have right now are I have a pair of 8-pound dumbbells and 15-pound dumbbells. And so I was like, well, it doesn't really matter. Like something clicked, and I was like, oh, I don't actually care. Like I don't actually care about like gains at this point. I don't care about
Hmm.
reps. I don't care about increasing any of that. The only thing I care about is like how do I get to do the work? How do I get consistent with the workout so that I'll continue to do it? Right? We can worry about
Uh,
the other stuff later, right? But for
mhm.
me, it's like it's important to like not bite off more than I can chew, um, and to kind of prioritize enjoyment in the workout
Mhm.
so that I'll continue to do it.
So what's the purpose? That's like the first question you have to ask yourself. Like, why are you doing this? Are you doing it to impress someone? Or are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it just to be healthy? Like, you
Right.
have to add all those things in and give it a good reason. Because you can be motivated as much as you want, but the reality is the consistency that makes a
Yes.
difference, right? Like as
Yes.
you noticed when you first started training, you probably noticed, wow, I look thinner, or I look
Yeah.
more in shape, or I have more muscle,
It
whatever the goal is.
what it was like after literally after the first time, because I didn't even join a gym. I just took my
Hmm.
dumbbells outside into the heat, which
Hmm.
turned out is very important,
Yeah.
and just like worked out until I sweat,
Hmm.
and then I continued to work out until I felt like I was done.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, like I got the little pump going on, so I felt real good. Like I could see change immediately after one workout, and so it like it was like, oh, okay, I kind of figured something out here, right? Um,
Yeah.
but again, I wasn't focusing on like, oh, I'm gonna do chest and arms today, and then legs. I
Hmm.
wasn't like planning it like that. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna go outside. I'm gonna move until I sweat, and the only thing that I really care about is enjoying every single moment of the workout itself, so that I'll want to come back and do it again.
When you start, that's fine.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, once you get a little further along, it's like you have to pick like a reasonable goal behind what you're doing, because otherwise you'll find yourself kind of like you mentioned, either overtraining
Hmm.
or just doing too much of the same thing, getting hurt. You
Hmm.
know, um, in some cases, you could be neglecting certain parts of the body that you
Hmm.
probably weren't aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of free programs out there, so a lot of beginners, they can do like 5-3-1 starting strength. Super squats. That was like a very big free program that I did when I was starting out, and it got me to like a 450-pound squat in
Mm.
like a year and a half. So I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff you can do, and
So
obviously it depends
so
on how you want to
I,
train.
again, yeah, and exactly. So for me, again, it's still not really about um, lifting heavier and heavier weights.
Right.
I think that's kind of a maybe a secondary goal. Like it'd be cool to be able to
Hmm.
do that, but it's more about being strong so that my body doesn't break down over time. Right.
So more like healthy as
Healthy,
opposed to
yeah,
just like
functional
performance.
movement, really. So
Hmm.
like, so strengthening the joints. Like I want my body to move the way I want it to move when I tell it to move.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as you're doing a bunch of compound movements, that's usually your best bet. So
Yeah.
to explain that in English, in case people don't know what I'm talking about,
Yeah. So please,
uh,
what is like compound movements?
so compound movements, like by the dictionary definition will be like multi-joint movements. So like your squat, your bench, your
Right.
deadlift, your overhead press, and then
Right.
variations of that. So
That's
you know,
basically all that I do. Yeah.
perfect. So you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're working on those movement patterns, you're going to get better at them.
Mm.
Strength is a skill, not necessarily just moving more weight.
Yeah.
So say if you
I
move
love
the weight
that.
more
Yeah.
effectively, that's good. If you move the weight quicker than before, that's another sign you're getting stronger because
Yes.
that means your force development went up. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways to train. You could be training for speed, you could be training for power, which is like being explosive,
Yeah.
and then obviously you could be training for like maximum static strength, which would be like your 1 rep max.
Right.
And you can have different like periodizations of the programming for those phases.
Mm.
So, and the same goes for like building muscle too. You can't just do everything all the time, every time, and expect something to happen
Right.
because it just doesn't work like
Right.
that. You have to be specific to your goal.
Um, I think that for me, and I think honestly this applies to a lot of people. It's like I mentioned, it's important to like not bite off more than I can chew, especially in the beginning. But also to keep my expectations about improvement sort of reasonable. And kind of what I mean by that is like I feel like I hit a plateau right before Father's Day, and
Hmm.
I was feeling a little bit like what am I? The workouts started to get a little bit robotic, and I
Hmm.
wasn't engaged with them as much, and I didn't feel like I was getting as much out of them.
So did it like stop being fun, or was it more like you just felt like the plateau is what kept it from being fun?
Yeah, it was more like the plateau. I felt like I was because for me, what it really I basically end up like moving, dancing really is what it is. I end up dancing with the weights, so it's like
Hmm.
because I'm outside, I'm right in my driveway, and I've got
Hmm.
uh, a lot of space to move around.
Right.
So but like the movements became like very repetitive is what it was,
Hmm.
and I wasn't breaking into like new mental ground, which is really where the satisfaction in the workouts come for me. It's like when I
Right.
can push past those barriers, right, and into something, where my body is screaming at me, stop, 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 or my mind is screaming, stop, 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 but I don't listen. You push forward anyway, and you get an extra 10 seconds or an extra 10%, right?
Right.
And so that's where like the real reward for me in working out comes, and I had fallen off from that. I wasn't really getting that, and I was kind of feeling a little despondent, I think, with the whole thing. Like, what do I do now, kind of thing.
Sometimes at that point you just change the goal or change the training style
And
for a little bit.
exactly. That's
Hmm.
what I was getting at in terms of having like reasonable expectations, because you're gonna hit a point where what you're doing needs to be reinvigorated or refreshed, or then it's time to maybe your goal was to just figure out how to get the workout in every single day, and now you've mastered that, right? So now it's time for the next step. But I mentioned Father's Day specifically because my wife got me it's so cool. It's so cool. A training gladius. So like the Roman style sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like
Yeah.
the mace training stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's
So
different. I've never done that.
it's so like she knows me so well. She knows me so well. But it like reinvigorated the whole thing, and now I'm using different movements, and so I'm working out different muscle groups, and like my forearms specifically, I've been trying to figure out how to get those into the workouts that I'm doing, and like this thing really like works out the forearms specifically.
Works like all those upper body muscles
Really
are
really
neglected.
does, like core.
Get
Yeah.
rotator cuff muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
So and it's fun. It's so like I legitimately covet my workout time. Like
That's awesome.
it's so it's not like it was before, where it was like, oh, I have to go to the gym, like kind of like a chore that needs to be done. This is
That's
like
gonna happen sometimes though.
sure, yeah. It is. But I think not having a commute really helps. Like knowing that I just like go right outside.
But it's also an easy way to like not do it too. That people don't talk about that enough. Like I think you have to have more discipline when you have a home gym because it's right there, but you can have a million excuses to stop you from doing it.
Fair enough. And I mean, to
And a
that
million
point,
distractions too while you're there too.
To that point, it's like I don't get nearly the same out of it during the winter because I need the heat, right? I like to work out in the heat, and it's just not as rewarding in the winter. So I slack off. I slacked off over the winter. But again, back to like reasonable expectations, and having I think what I'm getting at here is that I'm at the next stage where now it's time to think about a goal. Like what do I want to aim at? At this point.
Well, that's kind of where you ask yourself, what do you think is the most fun to do? Obviously, I feel like the mace training, so you probably just like doing different movements, right? Because you can do a lot of variations. So I wouldn't pick something where you're only doing maybe one or two different competition lifts. Sorry to say it like that, because some people are hobbyists and they don't want to compete, but they like doing the movements. So,
but I'm not necessarily saying that I don't want to compete. Like I like the idea of competing.
I mean, that works for some people too. Like I've had friends that literally act like they're signing up for a competition and never do it, but they'll train like they're going to. And then, I mean, I did it this year when, like I was one person away from qualifying for nationals, and I was like, okay, I'll just try some of the events and see how I would stand, like just to kind of see where I would be. And I kind of ran it that way. I was like, okay, I'm going to go as if I'm like signing up for nationals, and I'm going to prep like some of these events and see how I'm doing and like how I would stand if, say, next year the events are similar. Because in strongman, the events change all the time.
Right. So the other thing is like, there's something in me that like I want to test myself, right? But it wasn't immediately obvious until the last couple of months that like I want to pit myself against some challenge or some task, and to see how I measure up, because that's something that I really don't think I've ever had in my life. That kind of like, because I didn't play sports in high school or anything like that, and so there was never like the opportunity to see how I measured up and to work from that and see the improvement. But now like I can feel the improvement in my body and in my cardio too. And so like to get to the next level, there's like a competitive fire, right?
Right.
And
That's
good.
So
yeah. yeah, I want to do something with that. I'm also kind of insane. So, like, idealistically, it looks like a lot of fun what you do, right?
Hmm.
It looks like, I mean, fun maybe isn't the right word, but
It is fun.
it
Or
is
at least I
fun.
like it.
It is
It's fun to
fun.
watch
It's
too.
yeah. So I I would love to be able to do something like what you're doing
Hmm.
down here where I am.
I was gonna say you can come over any weekend. We don't like have a contract for that stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, like I offer a boot camp where you could do group training at the training center, and it's like 2 hours for $15 for most people. So like, and that's for like members. If you're non-member, it's like $20. So it's cheaper than Chipotle. You know, pretty easy to work with. I teach people how to pull trucks, deadlift cars, stuff
Oh
like that.
man, that's one of my favorite things is like watching you guys pull trucks across the parking lot. I don't know what it is
Hmm.
about it, but it's just like, yeah, yeah,
Well, it's like that circus side of where the sport started.
R-
Like
yeah,
doing crazy feats of strength that almost don't make sense, but finding a way how to do it.
yeah. Um, so you still in Newcastle County?
Yep.
Yeah.
The
So
training center is in Newcastle.
yeah, so I'm in Sussex. Uh,
Oh, okay. That's quite a drive.
it is, it is. Which is why I said like I would love to do what you're doing, but like establish something like that
Mhm.
down here.
Well,
Almost like a
have you? Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, go ahead.
have you tried out Rise Gym?
What is it?
Because that's like right around your area. Rise,
Rise?
like, yeah, it's in Rehoboth.
Rehoboth is actually kind of a hike for me. It's like almost an hour. Um,
I think there's another gym around there, but Rise is really cool. They have like a rock climbing section. They have a bunch of strongman and powerlifting and like Olympic lifting equipment. So you
hmm,
can kind of do everything there. Not like a bunch of strongman stuff, but like a good enough amount where if you're like off season, you could still have a good time.
gotcha.
If you go down to the beach, I highly recommend it. I'm not getting paid for saying that. Just letting you know.
Fair enough. But I know that it's a little bit of a hike for
Mhm.
me to get up to where you are, but to check out what you're doing and to see what the the boot camp is like, I think it would definitely be worth it. Um, Especially like being a dad and having I have a 3.5 year old and a 5.5 month old.
Wow.
So yeah, things are crazy. Like I have so little free time. It's insane.
Mhm.
But I also really value the free time that I have. So I'm much more productive with it than I was before I had kids. I joke and say that like, oh, I didn't figure out how to be productive until I had kids. Right. So
I feel like that's
yeah,
most people.
yeah.
So, at least from what I've noticed, that or they just completely ignore their responsibilities. But it sounds like you're a good dad, so
Yeah. Well, I
that's good.
appreciate that. Yeah. I work my ass off for it. So, uh, yeah, but it's a lot of fun too. Very much like the working out thing, where like
Hmm.
it's
Very
challenging
rewarding.
but very rewarding. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So so you run these boot camps. You do them every weekend.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless I have like somebody competing that weekend, we pretty much have them every week.
Hmm. Hmm.
So like next weekend I won't because I have a client doing a powerlifting meet on the 12th. But
Gotcha.
like this weekend, I'll have it available for Saturday and Sunday.
Huh. What time?
10 a.m. to noon.
Wow. Because I am um heading actually up that way this weekend.
Nice.
Trying to figure out if I can work that into the 10 a.m. to noon.
I'll teach you how to pull your first truck then, if that's the case.
Dude,
Yeah, it'll be
dude.
great.
Oh my god. Okay, I have to think about that because again, being a dad, like if I'm gonna steal a day away
Mhm.
to be away from the wife and kids, then like the whole thing needs to be
Take them with you.
very clearly planned. I can't take them with me because of the activities that I
Okay.
have planned after, but
Okay.
uh, it's my brother's 30th birthday, so I'm throwing him
Oh,
a
good for him.
surprise party. Um,
So
but
you're posting this. After.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
I'm gonna have
After said
to. I
party.
think I'm gonna have to. I mean, I don't know. He doesn't wash my stuff though, so I don't
Okay,
know.
that's good.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I like never worry about stuff like this like popping up anywhere if I have to like mention my family members
Yeah.
just because they don't really like not saying they don't care. Like I think my brother kind of does, but or my mom likes watching my TikTok videos,
Mm.
but she like never goes to my comps. So it's like, you know.
Yeah. So, um, but yeah, so 10 to 12, pretty much every weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just won't be the following weekend. Like it'll be
Right.
this weekend but not the following.
Yeah, the following weekend's my wife's birthday, so
Nice.
that's not good for me to
Yeah.
yeah. But um, maybe after that, if I can't find a way to make this weekend work.
Yeah.
Um, but for sure, it's like I don't like just pulling a truck would just be so cool.
I can teach you how to do it. It's I almost every single actually scratch that. Every single person I've taught how to do it, like I've taught women that weigh like 130 pounds how to do it. So
Mm.
like everyone can do it.
Oh,
It's
it's so
just
awesome.
like figuring out the mechanics of it. If you're heavier, it's obviously easier,
Mm.
but like everyone can do it.
So one of the other things that like because for me again like prioritizing enjoyment in the workout
Hmm.
is paramount, right? Because that's what keeps me
Right.
coming back. That's what like so one of the things that really did it for me was I got a pair of the Vibrams five fingered shoes. Do you know what I'm
Hmm.
talking about?
I've seen them.
Have you
So it's
have
like
you?
the barefoot shoes
Yeah,
with
yeah,
like the rubber soles.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, and man, they are awesome. They really are awesome.
Nice.
Um, I wish they weren't so weird because I would just wear them all the time
I was gonna
for
say you
everything.
like they have a lot that are a lot more stylish now. Like I think what Hey Dudes is like one of them. Then
Maybe.
there's Barefoot Shoes and Vivo.
Mm,
They look a little bit more stylish. Like you can wear them to the gym, wear them out. Like and I think Barefoot has like hiking boots that look almost dress shoes.
mm.
So I mean, there's a few different types of shoes out there you can use with a wide toe box now that have like a no support foot inlay that actually like supposedly orthopedically helps. I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure how much. I've just felt less injuries and like less strain in my body when I wear them. So
Hmm.
I'll say good things for now.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I've been using mine because I got a pair of them in 20. When did I do that? It was 2021, I think,
mhm.
because I wanted to run a 5K. Um, because I'd never done that before.
Those are tough.
It was not easy. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like I think after you do your first one, you're like, okay, it's not that bad. Like worst case scenario, you walk it right,
Yeah.
unless you tear something, but that's a different
Yeah.
story.
Um.
That's more of a hydration issue, anyways. If you're like tearing something in a like a 5K.
Mm. But I mean, I ran the whole thing and I ended with like a 10 minute average mile, which
That's
was all
awesome.
right. It was all
That's
right.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first mile was the fastest. It was like
Mhm.
8:59 or something like that. So it was like just
Nice.
under the 9 minute mark, and then um the second one was closer to 11 minutes, but the third one was yeah. Um, but it was fun, but really it was the shoes that um like I realized that there was something like I was like the movement because I would run around the property here at
Hmm.
night, right, to
Yeah.
train for it.
Yeah.
Um, and I always found myself like more weaving
Hmm.
and than just like straight running. Um,
So like your stride had issues or something like that.
not that it had issues, but I was just having fun.
Oh, okay.
So I was pretend like you know
So you would make up like a scenario and like
Yes.
maybe like run up a different trail or something like
Yes.
that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But it was different from any other running that I've ever done before,
Hmm.
because I felt like it was more natural,
Hmm.
so I could like get into the headspace easier. I don't know if that
I
makes
see what
any
you mean.
sense, but
I get where
yeah,
you're coming from. I don't do too many races. I did a Savage race once, and that was pretty fun. But I don't do too much cardio other than like picking up heavy weights and running
yeah,
with them. So
yeah. Um, so I just wanted to ask you about the shoes, because like my calf definition is kind of insane considering I do virtually no calf work at this point. I'm trying to figure out how to get more legs into the workouts, like kind of organically.
yeah,
Um,
do you have a hard time like getting like a heavier barbell set to help you with that, or like because you probably don't have any machines in your house, right?
yeah, I don't have any machines. Like I said, I have two pairs of dumbbells and
Hmm.
this gladius sword that I use,
Hmm.
and
So
that's
you're probably gonna need to just do heavier barbell squats or some kind of deadlifts. That or you could get
yeah.
a sandbag. I mean, sandbags are like what, like 60, $80,
Ooh, a
and then you just fill it up
sandbag.
with lead or sand, and then just squat with it, pick it up, do cleans, bring it up to your shoulder. You could progress
Yeah.
it quite a bit. I mean that.
Sandbag, a sandbag. I think that's the way to go for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it would be a cheaper way for you to not take up too much space, and then you can do it inside, you can do it outside,
Right.
you
Right.
go carry it, run with it, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different things you could do with that one piece of equipment as opposed to just like buying a barbell set and spending what $300 to $500 on a
Yeah.
decent barbell,
Which is
and
just
then what,
not.
like
I mean,
another
it's just not
thousand
in the
on the
budget
rack.
right now. Yeah. Yeah.
So I get that. I mean, worst case scenario, you just go to a gym, right? But you just got to figure out what's near you if that's the case.
Yeah, there's. I mean, there's one gym, but I'm not. I'm not gonna go to the gym. I don't know. It's just like it's.
Do you feel like you just haven't found your gym, and that's like one of your big issues?
Well, one of the issues is like I like to like the way that I work out. Uh, I'm like I said, it's more like dancing than it is anything else, and so I need
Hmm.
I need a lot of room first of all to do what I like to do.
Right.
And second of all, I don't. It makes me feel kind of self conscious, to go to
Okay.
a gym and then do this thing in front of other people. Which I think actually was part of the reason why when I was going to Planet Fitness, I wasn't making, the gains that
Hmm.
I thought that for the work that I was putting in, because there
Right.
was a lot of like stifling of my own expression, which
Hmm.
I found is what allows me to push past the mental barriers.
Right.
So it's like the move set that I'm doing needs to be more enjoyable than the pain that I'm feeling in the body.
Right.
So I don't. I feel like I have an interesting way, a unique perspective on things.
Hmm.
And uh, yeah, I don't know. It's where we are.
Okay.
So, but I like the idea of strength training specifically, um, and just like pulling cars and shit like that.
Nice.
Really appeals
So
to me.
strongman, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So do you have like stones, natural stones and stuff you start picking up?
I don't think so. Not.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that would be a cheap solution for you
yeah.
too. If you're like looking to like get into strongman, I would heavily suggest you learn how to pick up a stone.
Okay.
Because well, that's my one of my worst events, but that's in my opinion like that's where you go from being third to being first, or that's where you go from being like second to last to placing. Like
Hmm.
that event can make a huge difference for some people
Okay.
because most of strongman is like what can you pick off the floor and put on top of something or walk to something. Like
Hmm.
you'll see people like picking up stones all the way up to their shoulder. You'll see them walk with them, all sorts of crazy stuff. Like I think last year for Delaware Strongest, there was it was a stone series. So you
Mm.
had to put like a bunch of stones over a bar, and the bar for men was like 50. I think it was 56 or 52. No, it was 52 inches high for the first two, and then 48 inches high for the last three. I think
Mm.
something like that. And you don't think 52 inches is that high until you're like, wow, I basically have to bring that stone all the way
Oh,
up to my chin.
yeah.
So it's a big
Yeah.
full extension, right? And you have to use every muscle in your body to get that done. So it's pretty tough.
Yeah, that's another thing that I like. I like that's why I like the compound movements because I want to work
Mhm.
all of the muscles.
It's
I,
very time efficient.
yeah, which
Saves a lot of
times
time.
times the commodity right now. So,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, like I I started off doing like a lot of bodybuilding stuff, like hypertrophy training, I
yeah,
guess is the better way to put it.
yeah,
Um, which is fine to do. I'm not against it. It's just I got really bored of
yeah.
doing like chest flies and like what else did I used to do a lot that I don't do anymore? Like pretty much doing like mostly like a bunch of isolation work for
Mm.
like my accessories. I was like, oh, this is kind of boring.
Yeah,
Like doing sets of like 12 to 20 reps for like what 2 or 3 sets or whatever,
yeah.
and then basically just calling it a day after doing my main lifts. But now I have other ways to do it, and like I'll still do isolation work because there's some stuff that's just lagging that needs it, but
Mm.
anything that's not, I kind of just do variations of the lifts from there. But that's my style of training. Obviously, there's other people that love doing their isolation exercises, and that's
Right,
fine.
right. Yeah, it's not. So, well, let me ask you about like from your point of view the difference between strength training and hypertrophy training. So how
Well,
would you explain that
well,
for people?
the thing too is it once again it depends on the end goal, right? So if you're strength training, the main goal is to get stronger. So you're working
Mm,
mostly on your technique, building up your central nervous system so you can
mm.
have a better
And
output
that's kind
on
of
performance.
that's kind of an important part that I think people miss about weight training in general is that it really engages the central nervous system.
Yep.
Strength training specifically it reinforces or enhances the neural connections between the brain and the muscles that you're
Hmm.
using, which has
Yeah, more
massive
so than
benefits.
isolation.
Yeah, exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. I'm sorry. Go
Uh,
ahead.
oh, you're fine. Sorry for interrupting you, but pretty much what I'm getting at here is strength training can still be done while you're doing hypertrophy work.
Mm,
So like as long as you're doing higher repetitions with like say your competition lift,
mm,
so say you're a power lifter and it's squat, bench, deadlift, you know, if you do repetitions of like say 5 or more reps, you're getting a hypertrophy.
yes.
Honestly, even as low as 3 reps sometimes. If you're doing more than 3 reps, usually you'll get some kind of stimulus to your muscles to grow. Like they have to demand more
Mm,
growth in order to move either more weight or to do more repetitions for the following week.
mm,
So, you can do both. Um, the thing is though, it gets to a point where like if the main goal is hypertrophy, which is like building muscle,
right.
you kind of have to work with like a higher rep threshold. So
Yeah.
usually anywhere from like 6 to 30 reps. Usually,
Mm,
obviously, you can vary the rep ranges quite a bit, but strength work specifically, you also don't want to really go too close to failure. Like you want to get close, but not quite there.
yeah.
Um, Anywhere from like 5 to 2 or 3 reps shy of failure is usually good.
Mm,
And then obviously for hypertrophy, some people argue that training to failure is better.
mm.
I'd argue that once again, being like just shy of failure is probably ideal. But
Well,
that's
definitely. I mean, in terms of like avoiding injury.
well for sure.
Yeah.
Most people who train for hypertrophy specifically do a lot of isolation work though, which is
Right.
very difficult to like hurt yourself in essentially. Like it's a lot
Fair
easier to
enough.
hurt yourself in a squat because it's a lot more physically demanding. It's a
Sure.
harder exercise than like say a leg press.
Gotcha.
That's the difference between like two different exercises there. But hitting a set of 30 on leg press is a lot easier than hitting a set of 30 on squats
Mm.
with a challenging weight.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And again, you also run the risk of overtraining too if you try to push too much with too much weight.
I mean, you could easily hurt yourself if you're not planning that out right. Like,
Yeah.
if I do, like, say a set of 20 on squats, I make sure that it's like 65% of my max or something like
Right.
that.
Right.
There's a calculation for it, and you just have to be mindful. Hey, if this is the first time I'm doing this rep range, maybe I should space out how many of the 20 I'm doing in one go.
Mm.
Like maybe do 5 reps, take a 5 to 10 second break, do more,
Mm.
stuff like that. The myo reps or like rest pause per se. So there's a lot of different styles of training you could kind of like combine in a sense. So like now it's really popular to basically be like power building, where you
Mm.
do like bodybuilding accessories for your isolation work, and your main movements are like your powerlifting movements. There's some people that do that.
Hmm.
And then there's obviously some people that, like for me, I'm kind of like a hybrid between powerlifting and strongman. So I'll still bench. I just don't care about it as much,
Mm.
but I really like my squat and my deadlift. And then I just do strongman stuff as like an accessory to my powerlifting when I'm
Gotcha.
powerlifting. If I'm doing strongman, then I mostly prioritize the strongman stuff. And I'll do like powerlifting stuff during the off season as I get closer to that comp. Then I just do my competition list and call it a day.
Mm.
So there's definitely different ways to organize it. And that's like just talking about those two sports in particular. When it comes to Olympic lifting, you're like specifically working on that clean and jerk and snatch. And
Mm.
that's a whole different animal.
Mm.
That's like a lot of power output, a lot of like speed work, a lot of technique work, because those movements are very like technically demanding.
Oh.
So like the other thing about strength training is technique. So if your technique sucks, even if you're really strong, you're probably not going to get much stronger. You're not probably going to have that
Mm.
neural drive that's
Right.
demanded as you get stronger.
So I think this is a good place to ask you about the like the mind muscle connection.
I'm not really like an expert on that, but
Well, I mean,
to
I'm
put it,
not either, but so I'm not. I don't want to push you on the spot, I guess. But one of the things that I heard was, and that I found particularly fascinating, specifically in regards to speed training, is that if you if you have two people and
mhm,
they're doing the same number of reps with the same amount of weight in the same amount of time,
mhm,
the person who is consciously focusing on doing the reps as fast as possible will build speed faster than the person who isn't.
oh, for
Which
sure.
which is it's fascinating to me because the work is the same. Like it's equalized between the two people, but the mental game is different for one versus the
Mhm.
other. Um, so I
Well, it's
wonder,
force production, right?
what is it?
Force production. So say you're moving the same weight, but if you're moving it faster, force equals mass times acceleration, basic
Mm.
physics, right? So if you're putting more force into the bar, chances are you're probably going to get stronger because you're applying more force into that bar.
Even though you're doing the same number of reps
Yep,
in the same amount of time
because
as
it's easier
somebody.
for you.
Yeah.
When you think about it that way, like if you can move something fast, it's not hard anymore.
Hmm.
Like I know that sounds mind-boggling to hear, but like say two people lift the same weight and one person lifts it faster, who's probably stronger? Not always the case, but
Right.
generally speaking, that person should be stronger
Right.
because that means they can fire off more muscle fibers at the same time than the other person.
Hmm.
Now, there's rare exceptions like Zydrunas Hibiscus. I don't know if you watch World's Strongest Man, but his squats and his deadlifts are like really really slow. Like he'll have like 5 6 second reps,
Mm.
but he can deadlift over 1,000 pounds and he can squat like 800 for like 15 reps.
Good Lord.
But for some reason he just doesn't move insanely quick with like some of those heavier weights.
Hmm.
Some of it could have to do with him being well over 300 pounds, but that's a whole different thing.
Well, I think what was particularly fascinating to me is that like the person who is consciously trying to move for speed develops speed quicker than the person who isn't, even though they're doing the same
Hmm.
amount of work. And I have a background in psychology, so
Hmm.
like the connection between the mind and the body has always been fascinating to me.
Right.
And so the fact that you can consciously shift, really all it is where you're putting your attention. And so just that act can have an impact on your overall results. It's just absolutely fascinating.
Well, that's why cueing is so important in strength sports.
What
Like
cueing?
yeah, so like simple like cues that you can give somebody. So like for instance, telling someone to drive their hips forward on a deadlift.
Gotcha.
Because
Gotcha.
the main portion of the movement is moving your hips back to start and then moving them forward to finish.
Hmm.
So like once again, it can be a little bit more complicated than that, but
Yeah.
some people that's all they need. Like maybe just one or two simple reminders on how to do something that they usually forget,
Right.
right? Or something that they kind of tend to delay themselves on.
Hmm.
Usually it's like an inconsistency in the movement pattern or whatever, which is kind of where you go to mind muscle connection, right?
Right. Right.
Like you're saying, hey, you want to feel this muscle, you want to feel that muscle. Sometimes you don't feel any of them working, and you could be going off for a while, and you're like, man, I don't really. And I was one of those guys. Like that's why I wasn't really great at bodybuilding because I didn't have a mind muscle connection.
Hmm.
Like I didn't go, okay, I need to squeeze my glutes here, or I need to like
Right.
I still
Right.
don't even know how to really flex my chest yet, and I've been training for 5 years. So like, there's just some people that have it and don't, and I'm one of those people that's
Hmm.
not like I think of things more mechanically than I do in terms of like each muscle individually, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I like looking at movement patterns as opposed to just being like, okay, this
Well.
muscle does this muscle does that, and like I still do it, but I more so worry about okay, what is this movement pattern? What is it good for?
Hmm.
Then what muscles are used?
I mean, and I think that um, that's probably there's some wisdom in that because the muscles are designed to move together, right?
Yeah,
There's I don't know.
hopefully.
I mean, they're supposed to. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and so like isolating a muscle is a little bit unnatural when you think about like what our bodies are designed to do and how we're designed to interface with the environment.
Mhm.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but
Right.
um, I think I agree with you. I mean, we already know that
Hmm.
it's the compound movements for me personally that I'm interested in, like getting all the muscles to move, like functional movement, being able to feel good in my body and like to feel good when I move my body.
Hmm.
Um,
It's kind of hard saying what's functional too, though, because like obviously most people can agree a squat and a deadlift are functional
yeah,
movements, but like I've heard people argue over like bicep curls being functional. I'm like, when have I ever done this
yeah,
to like do anything that I actually need to do?
right.
Like once again, no shame on people who do curls. Like obviously training your biceps does help with like tendonitis and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So like I'm not saying don't do it. Uh, I personally don't care to train them because they don't make me stronger, so I don't do
Right,
them. But there's
right.
going to be
I
a lot
mean,
of people probably laugh at me for saying that.
yeah,
So it's perfectly fine. But you can train your biceps without directly working them all the time.
mm.
Like you do your chin ups, your rows,
Yeah.
you'll
Even
probably be fine.
like I find it boring to just like if I'm just gonna do some curls on the biceps, like I need more engagement from more of the muscles. So I'll
Well, you probably also don't have the time to spend 15 minutes just doing that
oh for
when you
sure,
could
yeah,
probably
absolutely,
do like a barbell row, chin
yeah,
ups, pull ups,
yeah.
or
I have
something
40
else.
minutes. That's my time allotment to work out. I do it
Yeah,
every day, but it's 40 minutes, and that's
right.
that includes warm up, stretching, cool down, like
Oh wow, you do all of that in 40 minutes. That's good.
yeah,
That's impressive.
yeah, yeah.
I was going to say I spend maybe like sometimes half an hour doing one exercise. Sometimes it just depends.
Jeez. I mean, and I think that would be like the difference between us.
Hmm.
Unless I have a like if I have a goal, then yeah, I'll spend a lot more time
Hmm.
doing one thing, which is kind of
Well,
what I learned when I trained for the 5K. It was like because
hmm,
that was all I did was I ran, right? Because I
right.
had this thing in the future that I need to be prepared for.
Yeah.
So yeah, but because right now I don't have a goal. I don't have like, there's not an event coming up. So it's really just about breaking a sweat and really just clearing my mind. Really. So
So you don't have any general goals with like anything you're doing particularly right now?
no, not right
Okay.
now. Just to be consistent, break a sweat, and like to get through those mental barriers. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You just got to keep in mind, like, what are you comparing to before? That way you don't fall off again.
Right.
'Cause I
Right.
feel like that's something that commonly happens. Not saying you'll do that because, you know, some people are really good at staying consistent.
Mm. And
But
again,
if,
it's like for me, it's not a chore. It's like it's something that I covet. I need that.
right.
Like I need that time out, in the
Hmm.
driveway in the
There
sun.
you go.
So
No, exercising outside is really good. It's actually part of why I do my boot camps outside
yeah.
sometimes, other than the fact that there's no actual space for it. But,
Yeah.
um, exercising outside, it increases your vitamin D.
Yeah.
Because you're getting that
Yeah.
sunlight and it helps fight depression, regulates hormones
Absolutely.
for some people. So
Plus, like the tan ain't bad either. You
yeah,
know.
I mean that's also helpful.
Yeah. I feel like they're um like the superficial side of working out gets a bad rap, but there's nothing wrong with enjoying, looking good.
That's
You
what I
know.
started with.
Yeah.
I was a skinny fat guy who was like 150 pounds.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're almost lying to yourself if you're not like trying to look better in the process too.
Yeah. Yeah. But like I genuinely enjoy how my body looks. It's like I'll pause and look in the mirror, a lot. Every time I walk by it and like check out the arms or check out the abs, see how things are going. Just, you
Yeah.
know. And
Well, the other thing too is just make sure that you have a healthy set of standards for yourself.
mm,
Because I feel like a lot of people compare themselves to someone that's been edited for like an hour,
oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
or someone that's like flexed on camera as like their relaxed look
Yeah.
when it's clearly not, like or perfect lighting versus like, regular lighting versus
Mm,
like the dark.
right.
People and that's like a lot of it just has to do with like really toxic like bodybuilding influencers that are like trying to make you think that like you have to look a certain way
Right.
or like you're not training hard enough, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really pay attention to any of that. To be honest with you,
That's
you
good.
are probably the only uh, strength influencer that I'm even aware of.
I'm not an
So,
influencer,
so
man. I have
I don't
like
know. I don't know.
sub
I don't know.
2,000 followers.
That's you gotta start somewhere, man.
Yeah, but I mean,
So,
like at the end of the day, I'm not really like if I am influencing anything, it would probably just be like, hey, just like chase your best self. Like
mm,
that's like really all I like. Yeah, exactly. Don't let your dreams be dreams. But like, uh, my main thing is just like it's just my strength journey that's just being like recorded and
mm,
posted online. Sometimes it helps me get clients. More often than not, I just get people asking me for free advice, and that's cool too. But I don't expect to monetize anything. I'm not doing anything completely extraordinary by any means.
mm,
Compared to like my peers in the same weight class, like I'm possibly getting to a point where I might be getting up there, but like
mm,
I'm also realistic with the sense that I'm like not like top 25% by any means.
mm. Well, I think to your point that it is important to have realistic expectations for yourself in both directions, right? So to look at whatever the Instagram, bodybuilder, um,
Or
and
even some powerlifters and strongman do the same thing.
right,
You know,
right, and to say that like, oh, I have to look like that. I mean, no, you don't, right?
or you're you. At the end of the
Exactly.
day, you're gonna obviously if you train hard and you're consistent, you eat right, you sleep right,
Mm,
you drink, minimally or not at all.
yeah,
Those will help.
yeah.
But at
So,
the end of the
oh my
day,
God,
we're
dude,
only gonna look
I could talk to
however we
you.
could.
Legitimately could just talk to you about this for the rest of the day.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I want to talk about nutrition.
Hmm.
One of the things that you said when we were at Deltec together, I will never forget it. You were like, when you figure out how to eat vegetables in the morning, like for breakfast, then
Yeah.
you kind of like
You
that's it.
figured it out.
You figured it
Yeah.
out. Yeah. I think about that all the time, all the time. Nutrition is probably the worst aspect of my like my health right now.
Doesn't have to be though.
I love that.
Why do you hate it?
It's not that I hate it. It's that it's the worst aspect. Um, so there are a couple of things. The biggest being my eating times
Hmm.
are out of whack. I I I I struggle with fourth meal, man. So
Hmm.
like, you know, between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. Like if
Yeah.
I'm not asleep, I'm eating, and it's not good
Right.
food that I'm eating. Right? It's
No, I get that.
so
I've been there. Oh
um
man, I used to drink a pack of soda and don't do this,
mm,
guys. By the way, I used to drink a pack of soda and like eat a box of pizza to myself
oh
back when I was like binge
god
eating. So it was
god
bad.
yeah
So I get that.
yeah. I do reasonably well during the day, but
Hmm.
if I don't if I'm not in bed before 1 a.m., then the wheels come off, and it's like every single night. Um, and so it messes with my sleep, and then you know I don't feel great the next morning,
Hmm.
and so I'm on top of like all the other stuff, being a dad and work and this,
You
that, and
feel
the
like you're
other.
stress eating in a sense.
Yeah. I think that's what's happening. It's because it's not so much about the food as it is about I think the relief. You know,
Hmm.
that like the day is over, and like this is kind of like my treat to myself.
Yeah,
You
who
know.
doesn't feel good eating? So I
Right.
mean, I
Right.
completely get where you're coming
Yeah.
from. I think the hard part is sometimes we associate like a moral code with food. And I
Mm.
mean, like obviously, like if you take like nutrition classes in college, you'll be told that every single class. It's like there is no moral value food to like to there's no moral value to food, and there is no such thing as good or bad foods in
Mm.
that sense. Like it doesn't make you morally superior on whatever you eat or whatever.
Mm.
Obviously, there's people that can argue that, but
Right.
uh, I think there's definitely a difference between nutritious foods and non-nutritious foods. Like
Yes. Yes.
there's clearly a point where like, hey, like this is the point of no return. Like, you could probably get away with eating a piece of cake like once a week and not gain weight.
Mm.
You could probably get away with like eating an occasional slice of pizza or
Mm.
whatever. But I'll be
But
damned if I told you that if am I allowed to say that?
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. There's no restrictions, so
Want to make sure I'm not like getting you too many editing situations.
no, you're good.
But basically what I'm getting at here is, you know, if you're eating foods that are nutritious, wholesome, like you're getting a lot of vitamins and
Mm.
minerals in them, that's like the main take, right? If you're eating 3 or 4 servings of vegetables and fruits, that's ideally what I look for when I'm
Mm.
helping someone with their nutrition. Like when I'm coaching somebody with nutrition, that's like my main like take home message. It's like, can I get you to just eat your vegetables and fruits?
Mm.
Oh, now I'm starting to get full. That's like the ticket right there. Because a lot of people obsess over protein,
Mm.
what's the best protein, this, that, and the other. But if they haven't gotten that part figured out, chances are probably not going to lose weight.
Right.
Because you know how easy it is to just like get hamburger meat and then just go hard with some fries because you got hamburger meat,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
That's the other issue I have with flexible dieting is there is a certain demographic of people where it doesn't really work for.
What is
Like
flexible dieting? Is that what you said?
yeah, flexible dieting is where like there's a lot of influencers that like overshare it as like being the end all be all to like, hey, well, if it fits your macros, that's fine to eat. And it gets to a point where that
Mm.
doesn't work for some
Right.
people because, like for me personally, if I get a donut, I'm probably eating the whole box.
Oh my god.
And I know
It's
there's a lot of
that's
people like
exactly how
that.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like for me, it's better to just not even think about it and not eat it.
Right.
Like maybe
Right.
save it for like a special occasion if I'm going to a party or something like that, or if I'm like finishing a competition or something like that. But like most of the time, like, you know what, out of sight, out of mind, I don't need it
Yeah.
to be happy. And I
Yeah.
think that's like a big issue I see with people in their diets is they think they have to be happy eating food. The food is giving you like fuel,
Yeah.
right? Are we going to put good fuel in it, or are we going to put bad fuel in it? And I hate saying it like that because once again, it goes back to that whole moral compass thing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like the quality of the food you put in is going to determine a lot of your mood. It's going to
Mm.
determine your gut bacteria. It's
Yep.
going to determine, like in a sense, like sometimes how you feel about yourself and your body.
Absolutely.
Like I know for a fact if I'm not eating like lean meats, some kind of like salmon or whatever. I'm not saying
Mm.
everyone has to eat like this because some people are allergic to stuff. But anyways, long story short, if I'm not eating that, I'm not eating my spinach, I'm not eating like my chicken stock rice or whatever,
Mm.
I know I'm out of sorts. Sometimes it's out of routine, but most of the time it's because of the nutritional profile of the foods. It helps me like not just have a better mood, but perform the way I'm supposed to.
Mm.
If I'm trying to lift the heaviest weight possible for my body, it makes sense to like optimize that through my nutrition.
Absolutely. I mean, on the flip side of that, I read, oh God, I can't even remember where it was now. But like 95% of your body shape is determined by diet.
Yeah,
And so it's like the thing that working out is least good for is weight loss, right? Not that it's bad for
it
weight loss,
depends.
but like it's like the me like I'm one of those people who kind of fell into that trap that like if you're working out, then that's good enough. You don't really have to address the diet because you're still,
Hmm.
but that's not actually the case, right?
There's some people that have really good genetics and they can get away with it.
Yes,
And I'm going to say there's some people,
some
not a
people,
lot,
some.
but there,
I'm not one
there's
of
some
them.
people that, yeah, there's some people they look amazing regardless how they eat
Mm.
sometimes. And it's crazy. Like they exist.
Ooh,
Now I'm not
to,
saying
to to
everybody's
that
like
to that
that.
point, I actually know I found this out too. I listen to the Huberman Labs
Yeah.
podcasts like all
Hmm.
the time, uh, and so to that point, like where people who can like they seem like they can eat pretty much anything and not gain
Hmm.
weight. Well, there's this so they call it NEAT
Hmm.
motions. So it's non-exercise induced or non-exercise activated thermogenesis.
Activity.
Yes, activity.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
so this would be like the people who jiggle their legs, right,
Yep.
when they're sitting, or the fidgeters kind of thing. Like
I'm that guy.
yeah, and so like those they end up like they've done studies on these people, and they
Hmm.
burn an extra like I think it was like 200 to like
Hmm.
850 calories a day
Oh
just
yeah.
from the fidgeting. Just from
Oh
the
yeah.
fit. I thought that was absolutely fascinating.
I believe it. Cause
Yeah.
like I mean, even before I was lifting, I was eating like 3,500 calories. But I also played soccer for like 3 hours straight, so that might have had
Well,
a lot to
yeah.
do with it
Well,
too.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so so what is your we touched on it a little bit, but as far as like
Mhm.
your nutritional advice goes, it's like seems pretty basic to start. It's like, are you eating enough fruits? Are you eating enough veggies? Right.
Are you eating lean proteins and or lean plant vegetables if that's like
Hmm.
low calorie plant vegetables if that's the case?
Hmm.
Like if you're vegan vegetarian. Like
Right.
obviously I'm not gonna tell everybody, hey, you should eat meat.
Right.
Like there's a lot of benefits to it. I mean, obviously there's benefits to every style of dieting. Like they're there for a reason.
Hmm.
Like they were made like intentionally for reasons. Like I'm not a fan of keto, but it's good for people who have like hormonal
Hmm.
imbalances or like people who suffer from like say like seizures.
Right.
Once again, that's not everybody. And once again, even if you do have hormonal issues, talk to your doctor.
Right.
Like don't just take advice from people on the internet. Like that's the other thing. Like don't take
Yeah.
that as advice for you to do. Like make sure you do your research
Right.
before you even consider something like that.
Right. I mean, uh, since you mentioned keto, it's
Because I've gotten sick on keto. I've tried it.
it it's
I
it's
don't recommend
it's
it.
really difficult, man. It's really difficult, and at the same time, it's also really easy to just eat a whole bunch of nonsense.
Oh yeah,
You
just
know?
have butter slapped on a ribeye.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it sounds awesome. I mean I do it every once in a while, but it's not like that's all I'm gonna eat. But
Um. So so
and there's some diets that are highly recommended, like even through like the ADA or whatever, not ADA, through the national health organizations and stuff.
Mm.
Um, for instance, like the Mediterranean diet, I can't
Yeah.
eat a Mediterranean diet because the amount of calories I need to perform for strongman is going to be too low through a Mediterranean diet.
I mean, the Mediterranean diet, though, is pretty much universally regarded as one of the healthiest ways for us to eat, you know?
Right.
So,
But it's not best for performance because it's too high in fiber. I'm going to be shitting all day.
interesting. Interesting.
White rice is better for me than brown rice at that point.
Hmm. Hmm.
So like best is like obviously subject to opinion,
Right.
and
And
obviously best isn't best case scenario in everything.
completely agreed. Um, so actually, I mean, I want to talk about fats then for a minute.
Hmm.
Um, because again, like I listen to a lot of these podcasts, and so what's your opinion on like the different types of fats, and have you noticed differences both in mood or performance um, if you like shift around your diet?
Uh, well, for me, this is for me personally. Obviously, everyone reacts differently to it. I do better when I'm eating red meat, and I actually
Hmm.
experimented this on myself for like a year.
I do
So,
too.
like,
Yeah.
in case anyone decides to slander me in the comments, that's cool. Uh, with that being said, there was a point where I ate more of like I hate to say like flexitarian sort of diet,
Hmm.
but like I was basically like vegetarian half the week, and then the other half of the week I was eating like white meats. So like
Hmm.
I didn't eat any red meat, and I think my iron levels actually dropped
Hmm.
like to a point where I was like hurting. I was
Yeah.
sick. Like I started getting sick from being like vegetarian almost.
So were you still training at the time?
This is when I
Or
first started training.
okay.
And then when I started eating red meat, like I noticed a performance output difference like quite significantly.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying that applies to everybody. That's just for me in particular. I probably just need more iron
Hmm.
because you get more like quality iron from red meat.
Hmm.
It's a very good source for that. Same thing with your B vitamins. I might have
Right.
been deficient on some of those.
I mean, amino acids too.
Yeah. Well, I
So
mean, the quality of the protein in red meat is some of the best quality protein you will get in your
I'm
body.
really glad
Like,
I'm really glad that you said that because it is. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, in terms of fats, like I'm not afraid of saturated fats.
Mm.
Not afraid of cholesterol.
Mm.
If
Mm.
you have issues with cholesterol though, I would say, hey, just make sure you watch your levels
Yeah.
and
Go to your doctor.
and
Yeah. There's yeah.
exactly. Like I can't do that. I'm not a dietitian.
Right.
I have a degree in nutrition sciences. I'm a nutrition coach, but I'm not a dietitian. So like when people have like blood pressure situations and stuff, I'm like, you got to go to
Yeah.
a doctor. I'm
Yeah.
not legally allowed to help you with that. Like I can help you with the exercise stuff. I can teach you how to eat fruits and vegetables. I might show you some fun recipes. That's kind of it. Like
Mm.
I don't do much more than that. That's outside of my scope of practice.
So not afraid of the saturated fats. Not afraid of cholesterol.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on the polyunsaturated fatty acids?
So you're talking more like vegetable fats, obviously.
Talking about really like the things like um, vegetable oil, soybean oil, the seed oils, sunflower oil,
If you're on
safflower
a
oil.
budget,
What's up?
if you're on a budget, I guess it's fine, but personally not my preference. Like like I think olive oil is fine. I'm not a
Mm,
huge fan of vegetable oil just because it hurts my stomach.
mm,
I because of
interesting.
the amount of food I eat, it's
Yeah.
hard for me to consume that like high estrogen based foods. But, most lifters will probably notice the thing with this unless they're like vegan or vegetarian or they have a heavy plant based diet.
Mm,
But because I eat like a pound of meat, it doesn't make sense for me to like lather it in like vegetable oil. I'm gonna
right.
sit in the bathroom for a while if I
Right.
do that. Like, and there's just some food combos that don't go well together, and I'm sure everyone's aware of them.
Mm,
Like, like if you have garlic in your food, is it really a good idea to have onions, scallions, and some other variation of an like the onion family in there?
right.
It's you're gonna be gassy.
Yeah.
Like, and some
Yeah.
people can only tolerate so much of that. Like, high FODMAP foods is usually how it's referred to, and a lot of those vegetable oils are in with that. Once again, for me personally, I'm not a fan of it. For people who have intestinal distress, not a fan of it. If you have gluten issues, not a fan of it.
So
But
go ahead.
like if you have like intestinal sensitivity issues, not a fan of it.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, if you don't have any allergies or any underlying conditions to that, you're fine. I don't think there's really a food that you shouldn't be allowed to eat. I think there's foods that you should probably just limit yourself on if you know that you're predisposed to either overdoing it or just like having some kind of intestinal distress. If that makes any sense.
To an extent, I agree, but I think the polyunsaturated fats specifically fall into the category of things that really probably nobody should be eating. And here's why. They're unstable at high temperatures, right? So when you heat them up, they go bad. They turn rancid.
Right.
And you might think that, oh, well, okay, as long as I'm not cooking with them, I should be okay.
Right.
But the issue is during the extraction process, when they use a lot of heat to remove the oil from whatever source, and so in that process the oil goes rancid, and so they have a process that they refer to as RBD: refine, bleach, and deodorize. Because when they're extracted, it actually used to be waste product, right? The oils used to be waste product that they would just get rid of, but they found that if they, did this RBD process, that the oils became very palatable, and since they were waste, also very profitable. So I think a lot of the intestinal issues that people have with these is more so related to the fact that the oils themselves are spoiled. Right.
I thought it had more to do with the estrogen content, because a lot of high estrogen based foods are usually hard on your stomach. Not everybody, once again, but if you're sensitive to foods, like say you get a little gassy on just eating garlic and then you put some vegetable oils on that,
yeah,
you're gonna be lighting up. It's
I wonder if there's an interplay between if part of why it is a high estrogen oil is because of the what's it?
The FODMAP. So there's like an index for sensitivity with food when it comes to digestion. There's some foods that are very the easiest way to say it would be like bloating / gassy ingredients, obviously. So for instance, onions and garlic make you gassy and bloated, right? That's an example. Same thing with broccoli or asparagus. It because of the acidity content, because of those high fiber estrogen contents, they make you more likely to be gassy, more likely to have digestive distress if you have a sensitive stomach. Once again, if you have a sensitive stomach.
Right.
If you're doing a super high calorie intake, probably not the best foods for it. Hence, same thing with brown rice with the phytic acid. That phytic acid's great at fighting cancer. It's great for heart health, but it's not so good for digestive health. You know what I'm saying? So and even some people with gluten intolerances, they also might happen to have issues with that kind of digestion on estrogen based fibers, So it just depends. And obviously, being a cheaper product, they're going to market the life out of it in most nutrition journals. Why do you think the plant-based community has gotten so big, right? It's the cheapest thing to sell. It's the most processed thing to sell. Now, with that being said, is there a benefit to eating fruits and vegetables? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say there isn't, but at the same time, though, you have to look at where a lot of the research is going and why it's being funded that way.
Exactly.
So it's important to notice that too.
It's these. My wife bought a pack of these Impossible burgers, right?
There's no way that's good for you.
No, absolutely
I don't know
not.
what
It's
the research
loaded,
is.
It's loaded with soybean oil or some nonsense.
Yeah, that's
it's come on now. Come on.
Well, I mean, I've eaten like seitan and stuff, and like my stomach is like on fire afterwards. Like it's almost like Indian food tastes delicious, but it's like
Mm,
the same burning effect you'd get from like eating Indian food. It's like I'd rather just eat
mm.
that where it actually
Yeah.
tastes like
Right.
good, you know?
Right.
But I don't know. I haven't had like a plant-based like protein where I'm like, wow, this tastes like the same, if not better than the
Yeah.
original. Instead, it looks like a crumbled like version of it. And I think with the snacks and the desserts, they've gotten it down.
Hmm.
Cause like there was this one vegan guy, he went to one of my competitions and he gave me like some cookies. It actually tastes pretty good. And I've had like vegan cupcakes and they're pretty good. But my stomach is on fire afterwards, you know, like I feel like I have to run to a toilet afterwards. Good
Yeah.
food, just hard on the digestive system, in my opinion,
Mm,
mainly because of those heavily processed vegetables and like the high FODMAPs.
mm, mm. So, what would you recommend to? One of the things that I've realized is that it's like the simpler the prescription, the easier it is to follow,
I
right?
say the less ingredients, the better.
Very
If
simple.
you have to
Yeah.
read a
Yeah.
big list of things, that's probably not good.
Yeah.
Like with seasonings and sauces is an exception, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of like sugar alcohols and stuff like
Mm,
that, but I don't heavily recommend it for people with digestive issues, which is a lot of people in America
yeah.
now. You
So,
know,
and like one of the reasons that I think a lot of people have these digestive issues is because they're constantly taking in these foods that have been refined, and so they're actually really hard on the
mhm,
digestive tract, and they cause
I would agree.
inflammation. And so like if you think that the Impossible Burger is healthy and so that's what you're eating, like it's but you're putting your maybe the Impossible Burger. I'm like, I don't mean to
Well,
pick on the
like
Impossible Burger, but like if you think that what you're eating is healthy but it's actually causing inflammation,
mhm,
right? There's an issue there,
right.
but you might not be aware of it, and so maybe you're attributing it to other things, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, the other thing too is it's like, are you allergic to it and you didn't even know?
Mm,
Because digestive allergies are different, right?
mm,
Like some people with like lactose intolerance, they just get a little gassy, right?
yeah,
Some people get like severe digestive distress. Like they're on the toilet for a while or
yeah,
they're like throwing up. Same thing with gluten allergies, where it's like, kind of not that bad. They could get away with eating like maybe a piece of bread or something fried.
right,
But then there's some people that have a severe intolerance to where they will be sick for like a week if they eat any of
yeah,
that. So, you know,
yeah,
I think there's a threshold for it, obviously. Like if you ate like say like some kind of beyond meat like a day and you don't get sick from it, obviously that's fine, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
if you start eating it for like a week, every day of the week per se, and then you're like, I notice I'm going to like the bathroom in a regular amount now,
Mm,
probably a sign you should stop, right?
yeah.
So like defining it as healthy might be different for everyone. Or like say if you're eating that instead of eating McDonald's, more power to you.
You
That's
know,
like kind of where I'm
again,
coming from
yeah,
too.
yeah. So I mean, there's definitely like a gradient there. So
Yeah,
if you're able to switch off of like going to McDonald's for something like the Impossible Burger, I think that's a great
yeah.
step. You know,
I think that's
yeah,
a good step forward.
yeah,
And I say the same thing to people who end up on keto, where a lot
mm,
of it's definitely a zealot culture.
sure,
And it's like, hey, like, this is like the best way to eat. There's no best way to eat. Eat whatever's best for
mm,
you. Like, some
yeah,
people eat out of convenience. Some
yeah,
people eat like with intention. Some people eat for performance. And, some people will just eat for general health. So it's like you got all these things that you could juggle around with that don't necessarily happen to be aligned at all,
mm,
right? You can't say a diet's like an end all be all for everything, right? Because there's different purposes for different foods, and there's different availabilities to
mm,
those foods as well. So
absolutely.
there's obviously that.
Also, like what works
Um,
for you isn't going to work for somebody else. You know,
exactly,
yeah,
because everyone has a different gut.
yeah,
Like we all have different, gut biomes and that sort of thing. But I feel like it's also worth noting that the like the culture to it doesn't necessarily equate to its validity.
mm,
Like just because like you mentioned, like just because keto is good for one guy doesn't mean it's good for everybody.
Right.
Like if you're a marathon runner, it's probably not good to do keto because you need a lot of carbs to succeed in a race. Like
Mm-hmm.
because you're probably going to pass out if you don't have enough like carbs
Yeah.
prior to that race. It makes no sense to be on a low carb diet when you're like a heavy endurance athlete. Like it can be done, I'm sure. I'm sure there's somebody out there
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
done it, but I don't think that's a great idea. That's an easy way to drop your blood sugar and drop to the floor. Like
Mm.
I don't know, just my
Yeah.
2 cents in that sense.
No, I mean it makes total sense. It's like eat for, eat for the event kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like you train for the
exactly.
event. You should also eat, consciously and intelligently to give your body the resources that it needs to do the thing that you want to do.
Right.
Right.
And I mean, there's also a lot of outliers in that stuff too. Like kind of like how I mentioned, man, I'm sure there's somebody out there, but like right now, I mean, we just had a guy interviewed for the news for it today. He's a vegan athlete and he plays first place on USPA nationals. So powerlifting meet. And now he's
Hmm.
doing a strongman competition, and I'm pretty sure he's capable of getting his pro card.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I was like,
That's
oh, maybe he's
awesome.
on steroids or something. He's not even on
Hmm.
steroids. Like he's drug tested. So
Hmm.
I was like, that's impressive. And there are outliers like that where like they're doing something, you're just like, I don't know how you're doing it.
It
I'm
just really works
curious to
for him. Yeah.
see. Like they got to do an experiment on him.
Yeah.
Like they got to just like test like his gut or something. Like
Yeah.
he's got to be an outlier on a lot of different stuff to like be that like incredibly faceted as an athlete
Mm.
on like what's not really recommended for like powerlifting or strongman because like obviously you're recommended like a super high protein diet, which I'm sure he still gets out of the vegetables, but just to be able to do that and like eat a reasonably high calorie intake
Mm.
while still performing at that level is incredible. Like not saying it can't be done, just
Yeah.
it's difficult. I'd
Yeah.
imagine it's very difficult to do that.
No doubt. To the point about uh, like wanting to get some testing done on this guy. Uh, do you do you monitor like things like your like get your blood work done? Do you like
Yeah.
what kind of what's your, I guess, testing regimen?
Uh, Mine isn't too crazy because I don't go to the doctor as much as I should,
Mm.
but just because it's expensive.
Yeah.
But I just get like a standard blood panel for like nutrition.
Okay.
So I'll check my iron levels, I'll check my cholesterol markers, or like my standard like fat composites
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So seeing whether I have a high HDL, high LDL, that sort of scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing too crazy. Uh, I'll check my hormone levels too, but nothing beyond that really for me. I mean, since I don't mess with like the extracurriculars, to
Mm-hmm.
put it that way, I'm not worried too much about like my hormone health as much. Like obviously, if something's super off, like I think last year it was like something with like my my iron levels were low, but I was eating a pound of steak every day. I was like, something's off here.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, that's impossible. Like if you're eating a pound and a half of like red meat, like
Yeah.
you'd expect your iron levels to be very high. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get that checked out and see what happens. But and then afterwards I was fine on my next test. So
Mm.
I think there might have been a dud or something. But
Possible.
it's just funny how my cholesterol and my fats have actually gone down since eating red meat, which is funny because a lot of people in the plant-based community would say, hey, that's not right.
Yeah.
But this isn't
Well,
like any
not just
shade
the
at them.
plant-based community, just like the general public at large. Like,
Oh yeah, everyone says, "Oh, red meat's bad for you."
yep,
Like
red,
just as a
yeah,
general trend.
saturated fat increases, cholesterol. Like,
But it's so dense in all the other nutrients.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
take liver for instance. Like cow liver is so good. Like in terms of like micronutrients, it's great
mm,
for you. The cholesterol's high, but like if you don't have any blood pressure issues, it's not a bad thing to eat.
mm,
It's got pretty much most of the micronutrients you need,
mm,
and it's pretty low in calories. So
yep, yeah,
the taste isn't great, but the nutritional value is good.
yeah. Do you Are you aware, or do you recommend like tests for the gut biome?
I would. Like, I haven't done it yet, but I definitely
Mm.
recommend it in the sense of like kind of figuring out what you may or may not be allergic to indirectly, or what
Mm.
like kind of intestinal distress you might have from certain types of food. I
Mm.
would say mostly for people who have like a hard time with their digestive system.
Mm.
So like say you have like an irregular bowel, or like you're going too often, stuff like
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
I think some people have to like almost get like that prescribed by a doctor, right?
I actually don't know. Which is why I was asking. So I don't know if like if it was something that you're aware of or that you've done, or if you
I
had
haven't
like
done it,
yeah.
but also like I don't like, once again, I'm kind of cheap, so I don't like spending all that money on the test. That's why I just get my
Yeah.
blood marker test.
Yeah.
I'm usually good to go after that because like that's $500 in a year that I'm spending on my tests
Mm.
versus like going to the doctors and them saying, yeah, I guess you're all right. Like, because like if your white blood cell count is abnormally high, it's gonna highlight.
Mm.
If like say like some other counts are higher than they should be, it's probably worth like investigating it further if you need to. But
Mm.
I'd say in terms of preventative medicine, that's my recommendation usually if you don't feel like spending the money. Because like sometimes you'll go to a physician and they'll charge you like $500, and then you're like, wow, I went to you for nothing, or like I already knew I had that.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we have
Yeah.
skipped the step here? Like, not saying like I know more than a medical professional by any means, but like
Right.
I feel like sometimes the
Listen, sometimes you do, and this is like,
well, when it comes to like nutrition, exercise, yeah,
mm.
I mean that's my wheelhouse. I train like high level athletes now.
Mm.
I train like locally some of the best strength athletes in the area.
Mm.
But when it comes to exercise, we talk about that all day, and I'm going to be wrong about stuff. Like I'm sure I'm going to be wrong about a few things I mentioned in the podcast, which people can obviously check on their own.
Yeah.
That's also why we
Yeah,
say, hey, do
we're
your
not
own
actually giving
research.
prescriptions here though. Like
Yeah.
we're not telling people what to do. I'm asking you because I'm interested and because like you've put in the work and you have the results. So I'm interested in what you do and like what you would recommend. So, but
I mean, it's just it varies from person to person. Like I would definitely recommend it for the most part, but particularly for people who have like gut issues
mm,
or if they're just curious.
yeah. I mean, I'm just curious. So,
Yeah,
uh,
there's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, I would like to know, like, because again, like the more that I'm aware of, the easier it is for me to make those changes, right?
Right. And it gives you an analytical approach to it too, right?
Yes,
Because
which
now you have
and
hard
I'm an
data.
analytical person, so it just like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, we were both science majors growing,
yeah,
so makes
yeah.
sense. You know, did you actually like finish through with the degree, or like did you do something completely different?
I didn't I so all right, not to toot my own horn, but I
Hmm.
got an A in Dr. Bianchi's
Good for you.
yeah,
That's an
his
accomplishment.
oh my goodness, I've never yeah,
That was the only time I ever dropped a class.
yeah.
And
It
I've done go ahead.
I just like it legitimately my favorite experience with school ever was that class. You know, it was so
More power to
demanding,
you.
it was so challenging, and ultimately so rewarding.
I just couldn't stand him as a teacher, to be honest with you.
Oh.
I was just like, you're rude. Like like it's
Yeah.
beyond being foreign. Like you're just rude. Like and I think I took like a week of that class and I was like, I'm dropping. Like
Mm,
I don't want to deal with this. Like this is that one class that's meant to be the weeding class, and I
yeah.
didn't make it. Like I
Yeah.
was just like, you know what? I get it. It's fine.
Which what was like what I think inspired me to stick with it because it was touted as like the most difficult course in the major. Like,
That's one of the hardest classes in the school.
yeah. Oh, and not
Yeah.
necessarily because of the content, just because of the way that he taught it. Right,
Yeah.
his standards were just out of control.
Oh,
Like,
dude, I had like and this is how you know like what's different from like a grad school level like teacher that's only in there because of their grant. So they have to do this class, but they'd rather do the research, and you can tell.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys, you could tell. But like I had a grad school class that was like this. I didn't go to grad school, but like it was a grad school level class. It was like I think it was a biochem, which is kind of the same thing as Bianchi's teaching us to a certain degree, right? There's a lot of biochemical principles at least. And I was like, how did I hate that more hate that less than the Bianchi class? 1 week. And don't get me wrong, this was bad. I mean, the grade average was so low they had to curve it from I think 47%.
Oh my
So
God.
47% was an A. That's
Wow.
how bad the teacher was.
Wow.
Like, because like it gets to a point where you're like, how much information do you really expect us to remember? Because like, and then you're testing us on stuff that you never went over in lecture and stuff. And I'm not going to go into the politics of school.
Well, yeah.
And then figuring out, oh yeah, they just copy and paste Quizlets. In case any of you are struggling with school, go to Quizlet. You're probably more than likely going to see your questions on there. I wish I knew that like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. I was like, man, he basically copy and pasted the Quizlet and literally by the chapter. It was like test 1 was literally the same as a Quizlet on test 1. And I figured it out after a certain point. And he was like, man, these grades are surprisingly good. And I was just like, I figured out that it was a Quizlet. Because like I think towards the end, I think like I started getting like higher percentages because I figured out the code. Like, and it sucks that it's like not really like me actually learning. It was just me figuring out the structure of what was taught. So like I don't know, that goes under the rabbit hole of like how I don't think college is really that great. But
I agree with you. Yeah.
It's a very overvalued thing in our society. I'm gonna move a little bit. Just letting you know.
Good.
Just got to charge, but you can keep talking.
I mean, and I agree with you. Because like I have a degree. I have a BS in psychology.
Right.
And I learned virtually nothing, about psychology through all. I think it took me 5 years to finish through the 5 years that I was in school for it.
Right.
But the year and a half or the year that I was at Del Tech, I learned so much more than I had ever learned at any point in my schooling. And it was because I was doing it for myself. Like I was interested in science.
Experience.
That too. But I genuinely wanted to learn the material, right? I was genuinely fascinated. I was genuinely interested. And so it wasn't hard for me to spend 6 hours working out one problem. Right. So, and then having to start all over, because the thing with like the harder sciences, the chemistry, like the upper, maybe not upper level, but like the entry level, like the real entry level classes and like calculus to an extent as well. It's like each problem is kind of like its own entity. And so you figure out, like you have the necessary, the requisite insight into solving the problem, and that it's hard won. Like it takes, like I said, some of them I would spend 6 hours with, because I would get the right answer, but I wouldn't feel good about it. I'm like, there's something I'm missing here. And so I would continue working the problem until.
Well, I think the other thing too, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Hopefully this gets some wheels spinning, but I think the other thing too about it is psychology and sociology are a lot like English. There's so many right answers, but it just depends on how you explain it, where your take is on it, right? And then with the harder sciences, they're more analytical. There's pretty much only one right answer. There's a million ways to get there.
Right.
Like say biochemistry, where you're like making reactions. You could do a lot of different ways to isolate a compound. There's a lot of different strategies you can do to get there. How pure it is going to vary from whatever methods you use. But at the end of the day, there's only one real answer, and that's the pure compound, right?
Right.
So that's an example.
No, and it's one of the reasons that I was like disillusioned with psychology is like when I realized that there's no clear we don't know anything. We don't know anything about
But we know
this.
too much for our own
So
good.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but yeah. Um, but then, like, taking physics on the other hand, physics with calculus, like, good Lord, that was a
Very
class.
finite, yeah.
Um, so I found it very alluring that,
Hmm.
there's a discrete answer. There's one thing,
Yeah.
right? Um, so, but yeah, I mean, after I got the A in Dr. Bianchi's class, I kind of felt like I'd satisfied, that
Hmm.
that curiosity.
Yeah.
Plus, I was watching like the student loan debt just. I'm like, dude,
Don't get me
no,
started on that. Terrible.
no.
Mine isn't bad for like finishing 4 years. I'm happy with like how much I owe. I hate saying it like that, but
It's. I know what
I
you mean,
shaved a
though.
lot of money off being an adult tech though. I think like
Yeah.
my total debt now I think is like 18 grand.
Oh
So I'm
wow.
like I'm happy with that. I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, I can pay that off in like 3 or 4 years, I
Yeah.
think.
Seriously. Seriously. Mine's somewhere around 70. It's like,
Oof. Yeah,
yeah,
that hurts.
yeah. It's not great. Um. So, but that was like if I'd have known, I think what I was signing up for, because it was kind of like ingrained in me that, like, oh, after high school you have to go to college, right? You
Right.
have to go to college. So there was never really any other option, and the only way for me to go to college was to take out loans,
Hmm.
and I didn't really understand. I didn't even really want to go to. I was just going because, like, I was told that I
That's what was
had to.
expected of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I didn't understand the loan aspect of it. And so, like, now there's no way that, especially now that I know that, like, the way that you learn is through actively engaging with the material, right? It's not so you have to be interested in the thing to
Yeah.
really learn about it. But the flip side, or I guess maybe not the flip side, but the like one of the other things that goes along with that is it's kind of analogous to working out, like
Yeah.
how I was mentioning, like, pushing through the mental boundaries is really
Hmm.
what's rewarding to me about working out. um Pushing through, like, the intellectual boundaries, right, was the same, like, the same visceral sense of reward,
I didn't
right?
get the same thrill out of it, to be honest with you.
And I didn't either until I realized that I've always been fascinated with science, and I really want to learn this stuff. And I'm not doing it to get the degree, I'm doing it to learn the information.
Mm.
Right. And so it's like
So
that.
enjoying the process of the study.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's the intrinsic motivation that, every new insight I came with, like, a flood of dopamine, just like, oh, that's what's happening here. Right. And
Hmm.
so it became kind of like almost an addiction. Like, oh no, I have to start the next problem because there's something in it. Right. There's something in it. Very similar to working out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, academically at least, I'm just so easily distracted. Like, I hate using like the whole like severe case of ADHD, but like even right now I'm like fidgeting,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
interested. I'm engaged in this conversation. But like, anyways, with that being said, I feel like when I learned how to train, like legitimately learned how to like become like competitive. I'm
Yeah.
not even that great by any means, but like when I finally learned how to compete, I was like, this is what doing something right feels like. Because I
Yes.
spent my whole life feeling like I do everything wrong.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different story. I'm not going to
Yeah.
spend an hour talking about that. But anyways, to kind of make it simple though, like my training, it felt so rewarding to the point where I was like, wow, I see the direct effect of my work. I couldn't see that in my studies, because sometimes I would study
Right.
hard and still fail a test or a class or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in some situations, like I noticed with my training, like even if it was a bad day, I still saw the end result of it by like say the next 2 to 3 months. I was like, wow, okay, I added 50 pounds to my squat in X amount of time. This is what I did. Cool. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? Repeat. Like, and with the studying, it started to pick up that way once I started getting better at what I was doing, because I realized, wow, I can use that same application for everything. I can use it
Yes.
for my business. I can
Yes.
use it for my learning. I can use it for like just the basic training of itself. I can also use that to help other people get it in like in a sense in line with that themselves. Like when people figure out, wow, I know how to like be disciplined enough to manage my life and not
Yes.
let my life control me,
Yes.
instead controlling my own life.
Yes.
That's kind of like the big take home I got from like the kind of training I do, because realistically, like obviously everyone gets to where they get in a different way, for sure. I think the psychological component of it is it becomes like some people go to a dark place to get something done. Like when it comes to like lifting a really heavy weight. Like the first time I deadlifted a
Yeah.
car, I pretended
Yeah.
my nephew was under there. Like,
Yeah.
like sometimes, it goes there. But, it's different for everybody. Some people are a lot just like they just need a clear mind.
Right.
Like so it's just different for everyone.
I mean, I like the point about it feeling like you're in control. You know, um, I did want to ask you though, because I've been um, interested in this question about, and I'll tell you my experience, and then I'd be interested to hear about yours. But they say that like one of the benefits of exercise is that your energy levels increase, right?
Yep.
And so I got none of that, in 2016 when I was going to Planet Fitness 4 times a week, right? I saw there was like no change to my energy levels.
What was your general mood when you were training though? Did you not feel like being there?
Most of the time I didn't. Yeah, now that I think about it.
I mean, that's probably most of what it was. It was you created the benefit. Like if you go in there thinking, "Hey, like I'm going to get in better shape. I'm going to feel better. I might not feel good today, but, the end result will come after the work is done."
Right.
You know, who's to say it's a month or not from now? It's just, are you satisfied with immediate gratification, or are you going to be satisfied with the purpose of doing it?
Right.
And that's the thing that like kills people when they're training. Like when I first started training, I wasn't like, oh wow, I'm jacked the next day. Like
Yeah.
no, I was 150 pounds. I was skinny fat. Like not in good shape at all. But I wanted to fulfill like getting a security position, so I had to get bigger, right? How does a dude who feels like he can eat until the end of time and still not gain weight gain mass? Doing heavy lifts. So I started getting into powerlifting, and I was like, wow, I gained 20 pounds in like 2 months. And I'm sure some of it was fluff, but like at the same
Yeah.
time though, gaining a lot of muscle in those first 3 months happens. Now it's like after like 5 years of lifting, like I feel like I've gained like maybe 30-35 pounds of lean mass. Like I went from being like 150 pounds to being like 198 in competitions, and that's after a water cut. So I'll weigh like 215, anywhere between 207 to 215 at the time being.
So
it's a lot. It's a lot of weight to gain.
I mean, first of all, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
What I've noticed specifically in regards to like the energy thing is that I don't feel, even now, like I don't feel that there's a substantial shift in my energy levels. What I feel though is that when I have moments where normally, maybe historically, I would like kind of collapse and go, "Oh, I'm tired. I'm done. I'm exhausted."
Yeah. You have less of that.
It's not. Yes, I have less of it, but at the same time, when those moments happen, it's like the thing, right? The thing
Mhm.
that is present in the workout that pushes through the mental barriers shows
Mhm.
up and pushes through like the mental barrier and uh, just in my everyday life. And so
Right.
I'm like, so what if I'm tired, right? I conceptualize it as like the demon comes out, right?
Right.
And it's like, who gives a shit if you're tired? Like, you know, and there's something empowering about not buying into the story that you're telling yourself about the way that you feel, which
Well, sometimes your feelings are going to tell you to, you know, I mean, realistically, how often do we feel like just eating cake, crying it on the couch or whatever, and just like, feeling sorry for ourselves for an hour?
yeah,
Like,
I mean,
it's
all the
like, oh, I'm
time.
gonna just go watch TV because that just feels good. Like,
Yeah,
what feels good isn't always what's best for us.
exactly.
And I think a lot of it has to do with that, us talking ourselves out of doing something productive or meaningful in our lives,
Mm.
or like making it sound like we're not going to do as well as we should.
So I mean,
To me,
I thought it was interesting that like the for me the energetic benefits weren't immediately apparent, but in those moments where like I felt like I was at rock bottom energy
hmm
wise,
yeah,
there was like that the 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 I don't know the breaking through the mental barrier, and on the other side there was like a surge of energy, right? And
well, it's
so
because you're
it's like
disciplined.
exactly, and I think that's one of the reasons why when I was training, going to the gym in 2016, that I didn't really, because I wasn't pushing through those mental barriers either. So
Right.
if I'm not pushing through them in the gym, then yeah, maybe I'm not going to notice a shift in energy because
Right.
I'm not energy I'm like training just to the point that I'm comfortable. So
I mean, our body's an adaptive machine, but it's only if we create a stimulus for it to adapt.
yes,
You know,
yes,
so like your body's not going to get stronger if you don't lift heavy. Not
right.
saying lift heavy all the time, but if you don't lift heavy, you're not going to get stronger.
Right. And if you want to
It's
continue
just
to get
not going to
stronger,
happen.
you have to lift heavier and heavier. Right.
Exactly. And if you want to get fit, you have to challenge your body to become fit.
Yes.
You know, doing endurance work, doing speed work, doing athletic movements.
Which I
You
mean,
know,
ultimately boils
same
down to
goes for like
challenging
football
your.
and basketball players.
Right. Right.
You have to practice the skill. You have to practice like whatever it is that you're training for.
Exactly. Um. Yeah. Well, listen, man. I think that's a pretty good place to end it. I don't
Yeah,
know
that's fun.
if you can hear, but the wife and kids are home, so dad mode is activated. But this was a lot of fun.
It was good
Uh,
talk.
and yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking to me. Um, and yeah, I'll be in touch about this weekend if I can figure out to make a way to make it work. If not, I definitely wanna come up sometime in the next couple of weeks
Yeah,
to check out the boot camp and see what that's all about, and we'll take it from there. And definitely like to have you on again. So
sounds awesome. I would love to be a guest again.
awesome, not a problem, man.
Cool.
All right,
Thank you for your time, man.
thank you. We'll see you later.
Yep. See you around, man.